Hello and welcome to Share Sync. We've got a very exciting episode for you today, and we're just about to start the weekend, so we're going to keep the energy up.
This is okay. I'll try. I'll try.
And to help us do that, we've got some very special guests in
have.
the room. We've got our first year students with us. We've got Renee is coming back.
She's back again
Yes.
after polluting my mind with her filth the last time.
Renee, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah. Are
You sound like you got less energy than me. Renee's like, I'm okay.
Akram, you're welcome to your debut on Share Sync.
It
And
is.
Tia,
Yes.
woo,
Hey.
welcome. How are you both doing?
I'm doing good. I feel like I've been productive today.
Nice.
It's only 2 o'clock.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited to film this.
Lovely. Exciting to have you as well. And Spencer, did you know we're
What?
also joined
Yeah.
by some very professional podcasters in the room?
Well, thank goodness for that. I'm not being funny. I'm just used to working with amateurs like you, Esme. So we've got people who know what they're doing.
We've got very special guests joined. We've got Molly and Daisy from second year. Hello Molly and Daisy. How are you doing?
Hi.
Like professionals straight away, you know. Tell me. I want to know then, Esme, about their podcast. Tell me.
Molly and Daisy have recently launched a new podcast called Girls Girl Podcast.
Called what, sorry?
The Girls Girl Podcast.
The Girls Girl Podcast. Awesome.
let
Can
them-
I go on that?
Can you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Molly and Daisy, hello and welcome to Share Sync. How are you doing?
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Very good.
How's it been since the launch of your podcast? Have you had autographs going out, your photo shoots, all of that going on?
Not quite.
Not quite.
No, not yet.
So what made you start it? What was the kind of, let's do a podcast?
I guess we kind of spoke about it a little bit, and about like a lot of people in our class and stuff were on about starting podcasts.
Yeah.
And we were like trying to think of like topics to talk about and this and that. And we were like, why don't we just make it not that serious?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just kind of like every week is just going to be, obviously it's like girly things, but like our latest episode we filmed is a bit of like politics and stuff as well, because
Oh, right.
obviously of the like election.
Yeah.
So
We just try and have fun with it. I think that's the best thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
And it
Cool.
comes across when you're talking on your podcast, and I love the episodes. I think recently you got a new episode launched, and you can really hear how much you enjoy it as well on your podcast. So it's really great. It's really good.
So when you say it's like girly things, what do you mean?
Well, everything.
What's girly things? No,
It's
so
just
I'm just
everything.
asking. I'm just asking. What
Yeah.
you said,
So-
girly things.
Yeah,
like what?
so like what first episode was more like makeup. So like if we were on
Okay.
a desert island, what would be one product you'd have to take? Yeah.
We talked about Halloween.
Yes,
did it
because we
today,
did it
yeah.
we released it on Halloween.
Good thinking.
Yeah.
We
So
should
we
have
were
done
like,
that,
what's
shouldn't we, Esme?
Halloween?
Little special.
We did
yeah.
have a Halloween
We did.
special.
So what did you do on the Halloween one? What was that about?
That was still the first episode.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
What we were just talking about our outfits and where we were going and what we were doing.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
What other topics do you talk about on the podcast and questions?
You
Maybe
said
could open-
politics. They said politics,
Yeah,
didn't
we
they?
touched a little bit on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of to do with what we were talking about, I guess.
Oh, we're trying to get through the taboo stuff. So we don't
Okay,
want
okay.
stuff like about, obviously periods and stuff.
Yeah.
We wanted to talk about that. So
And
we-
then that
yeah.
linked into like obviously the abortion thing
Yeah,
in
yeah.
America and
yeah,
just
we try to
got
keep it light-hearted as well. So
Yeah.
serious, but we also take a good position on
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And it also leads into something we covered a couple of weeks ago on a Monday in our modules on media regulation as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And how Cubicle Confessions Tampax advert, for example, is changing the way we talk about it and things like that, and it's in mainstream media. This is something we were doing with our second years. So I don't know, if that was things like advertisement and things like that you were talking about on there.
I think we touched on it. I think we mentioned we'd talked about it on
Yeah, I think so.
in
Yeah.
class a little bit. Yeah.
I thought, from what you just said there, one of the things that struck me, which I thought was really interesting, what you said there, is from the makeup stuff, but then talking about periods and about about how, and the reason, genuinely the reason that sticks with me is just again a module I know that I teach to do with film is showing them. We talk about taboos of discussing about how. And it's an example I use, which is how in movies women don't have periods.
Yeah.
There's not a movie in the world, you know. And actually, I'll show a clip out of it's an old film called Carrie, which begins with, you know, the kind of, but how, you know, to go from the kind of the light, the stuff about makeup, but then you look at something like that, and it's like it's still something that is really problematic to talk
Especially
about
like
and
the
to
Marvel
represent.
Films, you don't have like Black
Yeah,
Widow
nothing.
asking.
Nothing. No. Or soap operas, or you know, it's just not. You know, even now, you know, we talk about, you know, how progressive the world's become, and it's like, even now, that is not, you know, referenced in any way, shape, or form. And I always make the point: if it was men who had periods, you can guarantee that it would be referenced in everything, and men would be like, "I'm on my period." Wouldn't they? You know what I mean? They'd be like, you know, "I'm on my period. It's giving me power." You know, whereas it's, you know.
And if men were on their period, I could bet they wouldn't pay for tax.
You wouldn't pay for it if it was men. If it was men, they'd have 3 days off work every month as well. Do you know what I mean? It'd be written into your contract if it was a man.
Just 3 days.
3 days. I got that wrong. A week.
Just lucky.
The whole month.
Very
Yeah. True. Okay. Yeah.
We talk about media regulation, which I think is really key, about how advertisements become a bit more transparent, and only recently on things like the Always advert and Tampax, they actually changed the fluid that they show on the advertisement to clear. It's like red fluid to show blood on the advert. It's only recently done that. So I don't know what your thoughts are about this more transparent, like that idea of taboos, like maybe in film, advertisement, media that we consume.
I mean, I actually never thought about it until now, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's actually very true. But I think it's due to the fact that, like, in movies, in TV shows, they kind of try and push, like, this thing on women where women are meant to be perfect, be clean. They don't consider periods, which are, like, a monthly thing that happens to a woman, as something that will keep you clean. They consider it dirty. So when they already have, like, a perception of something in there that they're trying to push throughout this movie or TV show, they're never going to try and, like, steer away from that.
No,
And also I've noticed, like, especially with, like, period pads and tampons, there aren't that many actual options though. If you go to stores, people nowadays are talking about with their Always, like the brand, with their pads, they're getting like these like infections and stuff like that. I've seen it all over TikTok, and I'm like, there's barely any options. Like, people getting infections because of this.
Because it's like, I heard that they like bleach it and have like loads of chemicals, but then you look at the ones that are like all natural cotton and they're like twice the price. So it's like you either have to use the awful ones or like spend way more on the better ones, so it's not very fair.
It's taboo in real life as well, and I think that's why you're not going to see it in the media if you're not seeing it in real life. Like, even from school age, you know, like just something as simple as not being allowed to go to the toilet without a pass, like it already puts a taboo on it.
Definitely.
Especially when, you know, like a female student is asking to go to the toilet and it's just wait till break time. It doesn't work like that.
I think it's astonishing. I mean, the thing for me is, I mean, I grew up with 3 sisters, all older than me, and, you know, women's, you know, periods and the products and everything. I mean, it was just, it was everywhere in my house. If you know what I mean by that, it was visible. It was in the bathroom. I knew, you know, it meant nothing to me as a taboo at all, you know. And it wasn't until, for me, I remember being about 14, and then the school, you know, in terms of, you know, sex education and all of this, is they made it part of sex education. And I was like, you know, I remember at the time being really confused about it. Like, what's it got to do with sex? Do you know what I mean? My sister, what? You know, I didn't understand. I remember, I really didn't understand it. And I remember asking a teacher, you know, like, what's it got to do with, you know, I'm going home and talking to my sisters, you know, like, you know, is it, you know? But then it's that, but then you start to think about it, you know, in terms of the media representation, and for me, it's what's driven a lot of my, you know, interests, you know, in terms of representation of women and everything, because of that. Because it's like, whoa, this is actually terrifying, You know, that there's guys I know at school, friends, who know absolutely nothing about a woman.
Yeah.
Because
Do you know
that's
what I
what we
mean?
said, like, on our podcast as well, even in, like, primary school or whatever. Like, I think you learned about it together in biology in a very, like, biological sense. But other than that, it was even, like, the fact you're separated by gender.
Yeah.
And I understand it, like, to a certain extent, but it's like you say, like, it meant some guys, unless they had sisters maybe, or their mum was really open about it or whatever, like, wouldn't talk about it or like wouldn't know. And even like for me, I grew up in like a very male dominated family. Like I have a mum, but I don't have like aunties, cousins, anything that are female. So it's like it's even like in that sense it was taboo to me, because it's almost like the opposite. Like I had no other than my mum, like a role. And even like almost like an age thing, I guess, of like that older generation. They've not grown up with the advertisements that maybe we have now, so they think like, oh, we should like not really talk about it, or only at a certain age or whatever talk about it. Whereas like I think that's why on our podcast, it's even if there's someone younger listening to it,
definitely
they will feel like, oh, it's that like big sister kind of
100%,
advice.
100%.
Yeah, that's what we wanted. It was like a safe space.
Yeah.
So everyone we have like an Instagram, people can put their questions and stuff, and we can
anonymously as well.
so
Yeah.
then,
Excellent.
And then we can answer it and
we
give them
spoke a bit
advice.
about it like medically as well.
Yeah, we touched on that as well.
You know, a lot of the time the problems and like, oh, you have bad cramps, but everyone has it or whatever. And then actually it could be like endometriosis or something worse, and how it's often like pushed to the side even by like
doctors and stuff.
Yeah, it takes you a long time to get somewhere sometimes. I mean, you kind of look of the draw really with who you get, I guess.
100%.
But yeah.
In the Girls Girl podcast and podcasts like this, it's so good to be able to just share these topics and be able to more conversationally talk about them for people to listen and share them, like you're saying, Molly, talk about send in questions as well.
I mean, one of the points I made, and sorry, I'm going on about it, but it's that idea you mentioned about being unclean and all of that is again, you know, you look at it's not just you know, periods for women. It's the whole, and there's huge, thank goodness, huge bodies of work and theory and, you know, research done around it, around the whole idea of that monstrous feminine, that somehow, you know, the female body and what it does is monstrous, is you know, something to be terrified of. And the scary part about that is it's not a message that is just perpetuated for males, although obviously, you know, it's driven by them invariably, but it's you know, it's a message that has got out even amongst, you know, groups of women, you know what I mean, that the whole idea of that is you know, when you start watching stuff in the media closely, even movies and the, you know, it's really terrifying. It terrifies me, you know, because it's still there now.
I
you
feel
know,
like this could actually go the other way too, like in terms of like the fact that when it comes to pregnancy and giving birth, like people on different spectrums, like either trying to pretend it's like the best thing ever, like the most magical moment where you know you're just divine feminine what's the word, femininity, or like they act like it's the most terrible thing ever. I feel like it's perspective. I mean, everyone's gonna be different, but I think the actual reality of it is that let's be real, like it's gonna hurt. You're gonna have a lot of pain after. You're probably gonna have like postpartum depression. Like there's a lot of bad things, negative things, but you know, hopefully most people come out the other side. I just feel like people should just be more honest about it. And I think people nowadays, especially on social media, a lot of women are being really honest about the experience. But I do think that because of how on the other side people don't like to face reality, like it's easier for you if you have already this like perception with pregnancy where you want to believe it's this like amazing thing, you're gonna want to watch people that are also telling you this even though this isn't like reality, and like maybe the other way around too, where people just want to act like it's the most terrible thing. I think it just depends on the person, you know.
It's like what you were saying with the movies as well. It's like I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, you know, like, oh, she's just on a period. And things like that. And that's actually linked a lot to like, I've noticed in like really strong like feminist leads in movies. So I think, you know, like, I don't know if you've seen like 10 Things I Hate About You, like Kat Stratford and things like that. It's like, oh, she's just acting that way.
You'd be
I love
amazed
it.
yeah.
But it's like, oh, she's just acting that way because she's on her period. And it's like, actually, they're just trying to be like a strong, empowered like woman. And it's like saying that kind of makes it seem like, oh, when women are on their period or whatever, that it's like you said, they're these monsters that are gonna like.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's kind of scary, and you know the kind of the monstrous nature of women's bodies and periods. You know, pregnancy. What about breastfeeding? You know what I mean? Is women have to go in a room? You know what I mean? No, you know what I mean? The horror of a woman breastfeeding in public, you know, or something like this. And then the other side of the coin is the pressure on women, you know, to conform, you know, which is what we're talking about.
To breastfeed in the first place.
To breastfeed in the first place, you know, which is horrific, knowing, you know, what my wife, the kind of pressures to be what it is. But then it's the bigger, broader thing we're talking about, isn't it? The pressures on what it is to be a woman, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think, though, like, men don't know enough about the biology of women.
No.
Like even down to the menstrual cycle, a lot of men believe that the menstrual cycle is just them few days or a week you're on your period, when it's the whole month, and it resets every single month. And every woman has different lengths, every woman has different symptoms, different things going on in their menstrual cycle. And then on top of that, it doesn't help when medical professionals, their answer to everything is lose weight and get on birth control. Like
that's literally, it's so awful. It's like I went when I was 14, and I was so poorly. My mum and dad were like, you know, I was the first women in the family to be like, oh, you know, she's got it really bad. And they were a bit like, oh my God. And they wouldn't listen to me. I went on my own at 14, and it was just, go on birth control, and I was this little 14-year-old girl like, no, no, thank you. And then I got my dad to come in with me, and then it's a different story. Oh yeah, we'll listen now, and you know, she doesn't want to go on it, so we'll give her something else. But until my dad came, I had no voice at all with it. So yeah,
there is a lot, like Spencer said, there is a lot of work out there at the minute, and I would definitely recommend to have a read of Post-Feminism and Health by Evans, Riley and Robson, and a whole chapter about that idea of women after giving birth, the idea of snapping back, like changing, getting their body back immediately. And we see that with celebrities, and it's really not right that the paparazzi then post photos of them being like, oh, you know, she's still got a baby weight, or oh, look how fat she is, or whatever. When you need to realise, like Spencer was saying, about the changes of the female body as well.
I remember reading not long ago, and I'm being straight down the line. I never thought of this, and then I thought, oh my gosh, it was tennis players, and I forgot which ones they were, talking about the Wimbledon whites.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
and
like that in sport,
and saying how terrifying it was for female tennis players going into Wimbledon when they've got to wear white, who were due to go on their period. And they would take measures, you know, like you mentioned taking birth, and they were advised, well, take birth control for that to stop it and all of this. And you're like, no. Just don't wear white. What world are we living in?
I mean,
here?
I did competitive swimming, so as you can imagine, it's just like tampons galore. And it is nerve-wracking when you're like going into a session, especially when you're swimming like with boys and stuff. It's like you don't want that tampon string hanging out because it's so embarrassing, and it's just such a taboo that
also
like
uncomfortable.
It can be. And I think with swimming as well, like because of how long we have to train and how many times a week we have to train, it's like there's no escaping it. Like you can't just skip swimming on your period. Like if you're not swimming for a sport, like for example, if you're on your period, you just wouldn't go. Whereas like as a competitive swimmer, that was one of the hardest things, especially because like there's so much research to say that like tampons causes like worse cramps and things like that. And as someone who already struggled with their periods as it was, then adding doing a competitive sport on top, it makes it really difficult.
But you know, you look at the thing for me is when I see it in the, you know, read it or you just think we're in 2024. What is going on? You know, what's going on? Why have we not progressed? And as I say, I do a lecture, you know, where I've shown this, you know, this opening to Carrie for particular reasons, you know, and there's people in the room, you know, and their reaction is like, ugh. And honestly, you know, and
Like,
I do it for that reason, you know, I pause it and I'm like, what world are we living in where you get a reaction like that? We've not moving any further forward with, you know, how as a culture, as a society, with how we're dealing with women. Because I hate reading all this, you know, that we've progressed and, you know, things are so great for women now, and, you know,
We
all
haven't really
things.
got far.
Hello. You know what I mean? Are we really?
Anywhere, really.
You know,
like,
I just can't see it.
Yeah, we said as well about how birth control, when it's like being tested and stuff, is actually only tested on males. It's not even tested on women because our hormones are too like crazy. I don't know how like specific these facts are, but if you're on birth control, because it lowers your testosterone, your performance levels for like sports and gym and stuff, because I was like into the gym and I was reading about it, it lowers by 30% your ability to form muscle because your like testosterone levels decrease as well. So especially if they're saying for someone in sport like, oh, go on birth control, then it's like, no, actually, because, and as well, like you can get side effect, like you might feel really drowsy and tired and things like that, and it's like, there's like, why not just change the colour of something instead of putting hormones into your body? It's crazy to me.
There's not enough stuff out there there's not enough medication to deal with the different side effects of periods. Like
birth control gives very weird side effects.
It gives a lot.
Like I saw on TikTok, like there's this whole thing about making like male birth control, and they went around like just on the street somewhere, and were like, oh, if there was a pill you could take, obviously to guys, like, would you take it? And they were like, yeah, if there's no side effects. Like, if you see the list when you open a birth control box, it's like 2 full pages. And obviously I know they have to state it for legal reasons as well. Even if one person has had it, you have to put it on there. It's like you've said, if it was a man's problem, it would be a total different way of going about it.
Entirely different, yeah.
That was a good way of bringing it all back round to that original statement. But yeah, you're right, Daisy. It's that idea of you go out onto the streets of Coventry and Vox Pop about this and say, like, if you're a man, would you take these pills and da-da-da, and you'd probably get, maybe, I don't know, generalising, it'd be a no. It'd be like,
a lot of it is a no.
And a lot of the women in the comments were like, I wouldn't trust a guy to take it.
No,
I think we're so, obviously we don't know because it hasn't happened, but I think because we're so used to taking medication or something, and that it's, a lot of the time it is on the like woman to do something about it. They said like, I wouldn't trust a man to like be like, yeah, no, I have. So.
But then at the same, you know, with that in mind though, surely, as I say, in the 2024, that the least a man can do is find out, be a bit educated, take the time. You know, I mean, I know the media, we can blame the media for a lot of things, but it's also about, you know, reality checks as well, I think, for guys, and taking some accountability and some responsibility themselves as well. We can blame the media for a lot, and I think it is, but, you know, I think sometimes, you know, it's a case of taking some responsibility and accountability around these things as well.
It's always seen like things with like unplanned pregnancy. It's always blamed on the woman.
Of course,
it's always the woman's fault. It's the woman
that's still blamed on the woman. Like
it's always the woman's fault. It's always the woman's responsibility.
But then society, and there's another example I use, which is a crazy one. Really, the simplest way of thinking about that imbalance, right? And we won't be able to do it because this has got to be publishable. But just think about this for 1 second. Think how many negative words you can think of that you can call a woman, for being sexually promiscuous. Think about, you know, we could reel off loads, couldn't we? Please don't. You know, we've got to put this out. But can't but you can think of a lot. Now, think about how many negative words you can call a man.
Hardly negative words.
Yeah.
They consider
I just
it
call them
praise,
the
though.
same, like for.
Yeah.
No, but I know.
You know
Yeah.
what's crazy is where you can go any culture in the world.
Yeah.
There's millions for women. There's zero for men.
Yeah.
What's the best when you can think of a man? Player or a
Stirred.
stud.
Yeah.
It's actually positive. Women
Yeah.
have got millions, and I guarantee you one thing: all of those negative words that you can call a woman, it 100% was not a group of women sitting around the table going, you know what? We need to think of loads of words to call ourselves for being sexually promiscuous. It's men. It's crazy though. It's that imbalance.
It's not even considered like derogatory if you said any of those words towards a male.
No,
Like they would
No.
probably
Exactly.
They'd be
like
like,
be
thanks.
harassed.
proud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's absolutely terrifying. It's really scary that it goes to language, the words we use ourselves. It's really scary.
I think even just the way like single mothers and single fathers are treated is like a very evident example. Like it's so looked down on to be a single mother, but like single fathers get so much praise, like they're doing the best job ever. When
I think it's more like it's just accepted. It's like, okay, the mother will just look after the baby. They're on their own. It's just accepted. Yeah, they'll just do it by themselves.
It was
Then-
crazy because you
yeah.
get praise as a
Yeah.
dad. I've been praised out in the park with my son, you know, and I've had and it was an older lady came up to me. She's like, "Oh, you're so good," and I'm
Are
like,
you just taking him to
"What does that even mean?
Even
what do you
woman, like,
mean?"
you're doing your dad
Yes.
duties.
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, you know.
It's like
Yeah.
just
That's what Boris
expected.
said.
It's
No,
Yeah.
expected by the woman to be like
yeah.
No,
to know
like,
what to do.
yeah, even women themselves don't actually realize that they themselves are kind of praising men for doing the bare minimum.
yeah,
Like I think it has something to do with society because I see it all the time on social media, just like you said how you took your son to the park, how a man literally taking his child to the park on TikTok, instantly like 4 million likes, and the whole comment section is women, like let's be real, the whole comment section is women praising him, like wow, you're such an amazing father. It's like if you ask them in that comment section, would you praise a woman for taking her child to the park? You're a parent. You're meant to do that. Like that's normal
Yeah.
things. I'm not saying that no parent should be praised because I think every parent should be praised
Yes.
if they do a good job, but it's the fact that like women themselves don't even realize the standards that they have for other women compared to men, and they
Yeah.
need to like unpack that themselves on why they believe that and why they think
Yeah.
that way.
because I think I saw a TikTok the other day, and it was a woman saying that every woman when they get pregnant should prepare themselves for being a single mother, and I just thought it was disgusting because I'm like, it takes two people to make a child, so both people should be responsible in raising that child. I don't think that's a hard concept to grasp, and I think it's crazy that that's a conversation that's being had about having a child.
What I find interesting is that when you say you've seen it recently on TikTok, and Daisy, you said this as well, you saw something on a TikTok recently, is just seeing it on a TikTok and then we mention about these topics, and they're quite like, they are very serious, but they're on a platform that's shared on TikTok, and it's like entertainment format as well.
And probably one of the worst perpetrators of gender imbalance I've seen in my lifetime, to be blunt. TikTok.
Oh, TikTok, yeah.
Dreadful,
yeah.
dreadful space.
We're going to go
Says
back
an old, listen to me, I sound like an old man. Dreadful stuff. Yeah.
TikTok.
TikTok.
I
Yeah.
do wish it was
Spencer, have you ever
better
made
though.
a TikTok?
I've never made a TikTok, no.
Okay, maybe that could be the next share scene.
Shut up. Get lost.
Educating Spencer.
Get lost, Esme.
You guys can help Spencer make his first TikTok. Thank you everyone for coming in today.
That was deep.
That was so
That was profound.
Very good.
Unexpected, I've got to say.
It was.
I'm going to be traumatised for the thinking about being a man now for the rest of the day.
Just deep in life.
Yeah.
Wow.
But do you know what? These conversations are so important. So thank you
Yeah.
for being so open and sharing on ShareSync. We're going to start the weekend, and on ShareSync, we share something that you might be watching, reading, listening to, so we can put it into our playlist.
I've been watching Maths UK. I've been Married at First Sight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you just call it?
Maths. It's like the
I was like,
abbreviation.
you do maths in your spare time?
What is it called? Maths. Oh, married.
Married at First Sight. So
Married
like,
at first. Ah, right. Educated again, Esme.
Yeah,
Educated
me
again.
too.
Maths. What about that?
Yeah, but it's been really interesting to watch.
Akram, what would you share for the weekend? What should people listen, watch, read, go to the cinema? What should they do?
I'll say that like the type of person I am is that the more work I have to do, the more things I watch. So I've been watching a lot of stuff nowadays. Like, this sounds kind of immature, but I've just been getting back into, like, I've started watching Big Time Rush again.
Oh,
Shake It
so
Up,
good.
With the Wavy Pace. Like, this sounds very...
Comfort.
Yeah, comfort shows.
Okay, comfort shows,
You know,
nice.
definitely that.
Cozy season.
Yeah, essentially.
Nice. Tia, what would you share?
Well, when I get time after work, I'll probably watch some Netflix. I don't know. I've been watching Dexter, and then I want to start a new one. It's called like 3 Body Problems. I don't know. I think it's like a mind bending. Some
I
mind
saw that.
bending show.
It was meant to
so-
be good, that wasn't it?
Yeah, it looks alright.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I
yeah,
might
it
have to
does.
start that.
Can I say what I watched? I actually did go and watch Paddington 3.
Paddington in Peru.
I loved it.
No, you told me
Absolutely.
on the phone you did.
I loved it. I did. I told you I thought it was rubbish, didn't I? No, I've had a change of heart. I enjoyed it. I did. I
Right.
think I enjoyed it. I was a bit harsh on it, actually. And it did,
Okay.
because it did make me cry a little bit at the end.
Really?
My son broke his heart.
Oh, don't
I'm not going to... No, he was happy tears. But he was crying. My wife was crying. I was crying.
You all went together?
We all went together, and I was
Aw.
crying like that. And my son was getting all anyway. But I'm planning on going, if it's still on,
Right.
I'm planning on going to watch Piece by Piece on the weekend, which is it's a Lego movie, but it's about the life of Pharrell.
And Snoop Dogg's in it.
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
he?
yeah.
I saw that.
My son really wants to go and see it, so I'm planning on going and watch that.
Nice.
That's my plan.
Nice. Cool. Molly, what would you share?
I love Friends.
Yeah.
So I always watch it. It's always like my comfort show.
Yeah.
So, and even if you're having like a day where you feel a bit lonely, I always put that on.
Yeah.
But I have started watching The Dead Poets Society.
Oh,
It's a film.
what's that one?
No, shut up. You've not seen the Dead Poets
No,
Society.
it's-
What made you want to watch the Dead Poets Society?
Me and my boyfriend, we love classics.
Yeah.
So anything like
God, it's
that.
making me feel so old.
No, but it's
That
like,
is.
no,
Yeah.
it's like Robin Williams. He's passed away now.
Oh, yeah.
Bless
Yeah,
him. So
It's an amazing
yeah.
film.
So
yeah.
we've got halfway through that, and it's brilliant.
Daisy as well. What would you share for our listeners to watch,
Oh.
read, or listen to?
Okay, I have one for each.
Okay.
Like,
Ooh.
you know, watch Gilmore Girls
Okay.
on Netflix because autumnal comfort.
Yep.
Read Normal People because it's like winter, sad vibes. And then listen, I don't know why, on repeat, I have Dirty Diana by Michael Jackson on repeat at the moment because of Queen Diana. You know.
Oh, that's a
I
classic.
don't know why. Puts me in like a good mood in the
Yeah.
morning. I'm like, oh, have to go to the library all day, but like, yay! So.
And how about you, Esme? What are you gonna?
I've got a really good one, and
Oh.
this relates to what we were talking about today a little. So I've got a book that I'm reading, but also, there's also I know, I'm reading a book. I know,
Yeah.
an actual one. I'm reading a book, and it's actually not written by Gillian Anderson. It's actually curated by Gillian Anderson. It's called Want. Sexual Fantasies by Anonymous, and it's for anyone who identifies as a woman submitting their sexual fantasies into the book, and Gillian collects it all, and she's also got her own in there as well, anonymously, so you wouldn't know
Wow.
which one hers is.
Yeah.
But she's recently done a podcast with Fern Cotton as well. So the book was released in September this year, so it's really, really recent. But again, it's that idea of the stigma as well of women talking about their fantasies or what they might want, etc. And she talks with Fern Cotton on the Happy Place podcast, which I would also recommend to listen to.
You do. You constantly
I
recommend
know,
that
I do,
one.
I do. But this was Gillian Anderson.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
she's
yeah,
wonderful. But the book itself, definitely have. I recommend for everyone to read that because also it's taken away that stigma of slut shaming as well.
Women's sexuality.
Yeah,
Perhaps
and
another
identity.
podcast topic. That is, you know.
Possibly,
It
yeah. We can
is,
continue
you know.
it next time.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Share Sync. I've been Esme Sperling. I've been joined by
Renee.
Akram.
Tia.
Spencer.
Molly.
Daisy.
Woo! And thank you so much for listening to this episode. We look forward to welcoming you back next time. Woo! Goodbye.